Grief to me is unexplainable sorrow. It's like this sore or achy heart, a roller coaster of heavy and sometimes dark emotions. Grief to me was isolation, it was silence, it was invisibility. And when I say that, I mean that I was easily able to mask the sorrow that I was feeling in the presence of others. Do I consider the endurance of grief to be a hardship? Um, I would say everyone's experience is different. I've encountered individuals that became homeless following the death of a loved one. I've also encountered people that wanted to commit suicide because they felt that their life was meaningless following the death of a loved one. So, yes, grief can be a hardship that shows up on different levels for different people. For me, the hardship of grief showed up in the sense of affliction. It afflicted my body where rashes would show up all over my body. Grief would show up with affliction of my heart. I would get this aching, gnawing pain in my heart. And I also would get lower back pains that was unexplainable. I went to the doctor. My test results came back clear. Given medicine, the medicine didn't work. And I realized the reason why this was happening is because of instead of finding a way to release the grief, the sorrow, the hurt that I was feeling, instead of finding a way to have an outlet, I would suppress it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't share it. I would just keep it suppressed, keep it masked, keep it invisible. And because I chose to handle it that way, my body and my grief said it's going to show itself in another way. It had to have a place to release itself. So grief for me released itself in the form of afflicting my body. So that's why I encourage people that are going through grief to find somebody to talk to, find a place to have an outlet. If you're a musical genius, play music. If you love to write, write. If you love sports, use sports as an outlet and a symbolism of you releasing your grief, because I promise you, if you do not deal with your grief in one form or another positively, it will show up in afflictions within your body. It will show up in your life in ways that aren't pleasant, are not pleasant at all. Grief has taught me so many life lessons. Grief has taught me life lessons in endurance. Grief has taught me life lessons in resilience. Grief has taught me life lessons in self-motivation. Although grief was a huge hardship for me, grief was also a great learning experience for me. Because just on the other side of my pain, there lied my purpose. And I've experienced grief to be a teacher. I've chosen grief to be my teacher. And on this journey, I have learned to be resilient. I used to be shy, quiet. I'm reserved. I observe. But now I use this voice box to bring healing. Now I use this voice box to help others. Now I use this voice box to encourage, to motivate. So grief has brought me to a path that has catapulted me to better versions of myself day by day. Grief has taught me many things. Grief has taught me how to heal from the inside out. Grief has taught me how to learn from life lessons. Grief has taught me how to, although difficult, try to perceive and see the good within the bad and decide what I will make of it. Will I use it to my benefit or will I use it to my detriment? So When I think of grief, I think of the fact that I have a choice. With every encounter of sorrow that I face, how I am going to view it and how I am going to walk through it, walk with it, how I'm going to endure it. I'm not saying that I see grief as a beautiful thing. Of course, there's times where no, I don't want to deal with grief. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want it in my realm. Yet when it shows its face, it's up to me how I'm going to mold it, how I'm going to shape it, and how I'm going to let it affect my life. And losing my mom and dad, then my aunts, then my grandmother, those were pains that were daggers, 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 one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And when I made the choice that this will not kill me, when I made the choice that I'm going to use this to be a better version of me so that when I leave this life, I will leave here empty. When I leave this life, people will be able to say, Letitia was here. When I leave this life, I live with legacy. And it's all because of how I chose to use that grief to catapult me to something better, to use that grief to catapult me to the best versions of myself. And it wasn't easy, for I have met many people that endure grief, some that are now homeless, some that have wanted to commit suicide, some that are reckless, some that have become victims to their grief. And observing those different lifestyles and those different choices, now I look at myself and I say, Letitia, what choice will you make concerning your grief? Observing the different paths that you are allowed to take, what path will you go down? And currently, I'm choosing to go down a path that is serving purpose not only for myself but for others. I'm choosing to go down a path of light, enlightenment. I'm choosing to go down a path that makes a difference. And for that, I say thank you. Thank you to my grief and for what it's taught me. For you have not broken me and you have not destroyed me. You have made me better.